I called him vanilla in bed to my friends, but what he did that night left me speechless. Hello, my name is Sophia, and I'm 35 years old. I've been married to Daniel for 4 years now. If you met us, you'd think we were the perfect couple. I run a successful online business. I cook, I clean. I take care of him, and we rarely fight. Daniel is my rock, sweet, dependable, and would literally take a bullet for me, but despite how sweet everything else was for us and how perfectly we blended in. There's one huge problem in our marriage: sex. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I love sex. I always have. It's not just something I enjoy, it's something I crave. I love the intimacy, the rush, the way my body reacts when a man knows exactly what he's doing. I love being wanted, to be worshipped, being the center of someone's hunger. Before I met Danny, sex was like breathing to me, natural, effortless. A part of my life I never had to think about. I had the best experiences, the kind that left me sore for days, but still aching for more. I wasn't just with men who liked sex, I was with men who were obsessed with me, who knew how to pull my hair at just the right moment, who knew when to be rough, when to be slow, when to make me beg, and when to completely break me. I had sex everywhere: in cars, in public bathrooms, on rooftops, on the backseat of an Uber. When I was feeling reckless, I had partners who weren't afraid to experiment, who introduced me to things I had never even considered, and I always said yes. I thrived on the rush of it, the spontaneity, the unpredictability, the way my body could be twisted and used in ways that had me seeing stars. I was never afraid to try new things: toys, choking, restraints, role play, even threesomes. I did it all and I loved it, but then I met Daniel. At first I thought he was different in a good way. He was steady, reliable, and didn't treat me like I was just some wild, insatiable woman. He took me out on dates, listened to me when I talked, and never made me feel like sex was the only thing he wanted from me. And I'll be honest, at first, that was refreshing, and when we finally slept together, it wasn't bad. It was gentle, sweet, like something out of a rom-com where the guy kisses you softly and tells you you're beautiful. But deep down, I wanted more. I thought maybe he was just holding back, that once we got comfortable, the passion would come, but it never did. I tried everything. I bought lingerie, black lace, red satin, see-through bodysuits that barely covered anything. I'd slip into bed, wearing them, press myself against him, whisper in his ear, trail my fingers down his stomach, but nothing changed. He'd smile, kiss my forehead, say I looked beautiful, and then do the same thing he always did. I suggested trying new things. I told him we could be adventurous, that I wanted to spice things up. I even bought toys, hoping that maybe he'd finally break out of his shell. I introduced something new, but every time it was the same. He would sigh, shake his head, and tell me that we didn't need all that to enjoy each other. That sex was supposed to be simple, not chasing some fantasy, but about connecting. I wanted to scream. Sex wasn't just about love for me. It was about pleasure, about satisfaction, and I wasn't satisfied, but I told myself it was fine. He was a good man, he was loyal, he was kind, but then the resentment started. I'd find myself fantasizing about other men while we were together. Closing my eyes and pretending it wasn't him, I'd think about the men before him. Me down on all fours, how they'd make me beg for it. How they'd fuck me so many times, I couldn't even walk straight the next day. The worst part was I started avoiding sex altogether, because I knew how it would go. 5 minutes, no passion, no excitement, no real satisfaction. I'd lie there waiting for it to be over, and then I'd roll over and stare at the ceiling, wondering why the hell I had given up a life of incredible, mind-blowing sex for this. But I loved him. I love him, and I kept telling myself that love should be enough. But it wasn't, because no matter how much I told myself, I could live without passionate, toe-curling, intense, leave-me gasping sex. The truth was I couldn't, and so I did something terrible. I started cheating. I don't know when exactly the idea first took root in my mind, but once I did, it became impossible to ignore. It started as just a thought, a tiny whispering voice in the back of my mind telling me that I deserved more, that I was still young, beautiful, desirable, that I shouldn't have to beg my own husband for the kind of passion I craved. At first, I tried to fight it. I told myself I would never do something like that, that no matter how frustrated I was, I would be faithful. That love was more important than sex, but that was a lie. It happened so easily that I barely even remember when it stopped being just a thought and became reality. The first time was almost accidental. I had gone out to a bar with a few old college friends just to catch up, nothing suspicious, nothing premeditated, and then I ran into Josh. He had been one of my wildest experiences back in college. A guy who knew exactly how to handle me. He had been the type to take what he wanted, to pull my hair and pin me down and leave bruises in places I had to cover up with makeup the next day. Back then, he was the kind of man I lived for. When he saw me, he smirked, made a comment about how I still looked the same, and I felt something ignite in me that I hadn't felt in years. A thrill, a spark, a hunger, I thought had died inside me. We talked, we laughed, I drank too much maybe, and then before I even realized what I was doing, I was in the bathroom with my dress hiked up and my hands braced against the sink while Josh fucked me from behind like I was still that reckless college girl who didn't care what had happened until I was smoothing down my dress looking at myself in the mirror, heart racing, lips swollen, thighs still trembling. I told myself it was just one mistake, a moment of weakness, but the moment I got home and slipped into bed beside Daniel, listening to his slow, steady breathing as he slept soundly, I felt nothing, no guilt, no shame, no regret, and that terrified me because if I didn't feel guilty after the first time, then what was stopping me from doing it again? And so I did it first. It was just Josh. I met up with him once, then twice, then a third time. We never made plans. He'd text me when he was in town, and I'd find a way to meet him. It was exciting knowing that I was sneaking around lying to my husband's face. Fucked another man, and then coming home like nothing happened, but soon Josh wasn't enough. The thrill wore off, the excitement faded, so I found another, then another, then another. I had men on rotation, each one serving a different purpose. There was Ethan, the personal trainer, who had a body carved from stone and the stamina of a machine. Then there was Chris, the smooth-talking businessman who knew how to treat a woman. He took me to expensive hotels, bought me gifts, called me beautiful while he undressed me, slowly kissed every inch of my skin like I was the most precious thing in the world. With Chris, I felt worshipped in a way Daniel had never made me feel. Then there was Tyler, my biggest mistake. Tyler was dangerous, not in the physical sense. He was never rough or aggressive, but because he made me feel things I wasn't supposed to feel. Tyler was the first man who ever made me consider leaving my husband. He made me laugh. He made me feel alive. He made me feel like I was young again, reckless again, free again. I started making excuses to see him more, pushing my luck, spending nights at his place under the pretense of girls' trips. Daniel never questioned me because Daniel trusted me, and I took that trust and destroyed it. The worst part, I still believed I loved him every time I came home, every time I climbed into bed beside him after being with another man. I told myself that he was still the one I wanted, that I could have my fun and keep my marriage, that as long as I always came back, it didn't mean anything. But that was another lie, because with every man I slept with, every lie I told, every time I looked into Daniel's kind, loving eyes and kissed him with another man's taste still on my lips, I was pushing myself further and further into something I couldn't escape from, and I knew deep down that it was only a matter of time before it all came crashing down. It all came crashing down last Friday. It started off like any other night out, a harmless evening with my girls. No pressure, no expectations, just drinks, gossip, and laughter. I needed the break. I had spent the entire week playing the perfect wife, cooking dinner, washing Daniel's clothes, handling my online business, smiling at him like I wasn't sneaking around behind his back. By the time I got to the bar, I was already in the mood to let loose. The music was loud, the drinks were flowing, and my friends were just as ready to unwind. Melissa was the first to start talking about her latest fling, bragging about how she had met up with some guy from the gym while her husband thought she was out getting groceries. She laughed, swiping through pictures on her phone, telling us how she had lied so easily that her husband didn't even suspect a thing. Jasmine chimed in next, rolling her eyes and saying that at this point she had lost count of how many men she had been with since getting married. She was proud of it, almost cocky, saying that her husband was so stupid he would never even think to question her. She talked about how she had hooked up with her boss in his office just last week, how it was so risky but so worth it. I remember laughing, and I wasn't even drunk yet, but I was already getting caught up in the conversation. The energy, the thrill, the feeling of being surrounded by women who understood me, who knew what it was like to be trapped in a passionless marriage and refused to settle for it. I don't even know why I said it. Maybe it was the cocktails, maybe it was the excitement in the air, or maybe it was just my own arrogance. I laughed and said that at least they were having fun because my husband was the most vanilla man alive. I said it like a joke, shaking my head, rolling my eyes, but it wasn't a joke. I told them how I practically had to beg him for sex, how he would sigh like it was a chore, how it never lasted more than minutes before he rolled over and went to sleep. I told them that half the time I didn't even finish, and that's why I had Jake, Brian, and Tyler on rotation. They roared with laughter. I kept talking because at that moment, I felt unstoppable. I told them everything about how I would fake being asleep just so I wouldn't have to deal with another boring, mechanical, passionless night with Daniel. How I would sneak off during the day, making up excuses about work meetings or spa appointments, when in reality, I was in some random man's bed screaming in a way my husband had never heard. I told them about the craziest places I had cheated, the times I had barely gotten away with it, how I had once met up with a guy in a parking lot right before heading home to cook dinner for Daniel, how he had kissed me when I walked through the door completely unaware that I still had another man's cum between my legs, and I laughed. We all did, because at that moment, it was just a joke, just harmless girl talk between friends, secrets that would never leave the table, but what I didn't know was that my phone had dialed Daniel. I didn't even notice it. I had set my phone down on the table next to my drink, not thinking much of it. Not realizing that somehow in all the movement and excitement, my fingers had accidentally called my husband, and he heard everything, every single word, every detail. He knew how I spoke about him behind his back, how I laughed at him, how I had never once respected him the way he thought I did, and not only that, he recorded the entire conversation. I finally checked my phone and saw the missed call log. Then I realized what I had done. My heart stopped. Daniel's name was right there sitting at the top of my call history, a call that had lasted minutes. Long enough for him to have heard every disgusting, humiliating, vile thing I had said about him. I remember staring at my phone in shock, feeling the blood drain from my face as my stomach twisted in a way that almost made me throw up. I checked my texts. There was nothing. No missed calls, no angry messages, no questions, no accusations, no rage, nothing. I felt physically sick. I didn't know what to do. Should I call him? Should I go home? Should I pretend I had no idea what happened and hope he hadn't picked up? But deep down I knew. I knew that he had heard it. I knew that everything I had been hiding, everything I had been getting away with for years had just been exposed in the worst way possible, and there was no way to take it back. When I got home that night, Daniel was waiting for me. I knew something was wrong the moment I stepped through the door. The house was too quiet. The lights were on, but he wasn't in the bedroom or the kitchen. He was sitting on the couch just waiting, his hands rested on his thighs, his posture stiff, his eyes locked on the floor like he had been stuck there for hours. I felt my stomach tighten. Something was off. I called his name, but he didn't answer right away. He just lifted his head, looked at me, and there was nothing, no warmth, no anger, no emotion, just a man who looked like he had finally given up. I tried to act normal. I smiled. I walked toward him, ready to lean down and kiss him like I always did after a night out. I told myself maybe he didn't hear the call, maybe I had imagined it, maybe this was just in my head, and he was just tired or upset about something else. But then as I got close, he pulled away, not violently, not dramatically, just enough for me to know that whatever I thought I could fix with a kiss, whatever lie I had planned to tell him, wouldn't work. I asked him what was wrong. He still didn't answer. He just reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and pressed play, and then I heard it. My voice loud and clear, playing through the speakers like a sick confession, like the worst version of myself being thrown right back in my face, laughing, mocking, exposing every single dirty, disgusting thing I had ever said about him. I froze. I couldn't breathe. I could hear myself laughing with my friends, calling him vanilla, making fun of how quickly he finished in bed, how I had met men on rotation just to keep myself satisfied. I heard myself bragging about cheating. I heard myself admit to coming home with another man's cum still in me, pretending to be a loving wife while I was carrying the evidence of my betrayal between my legs. I heard everything. I wanted to turn it off. I wanted to run. I wanted to do anything but stand there and listen to the worst parts of myself being played in my own home. But Daniel let it play. He let it play all the way through. And when it ended, he just sat there staring at me, and I felt like I was about to throw up. My mouth opened, but I had no idea what to say. What do you say when the ugliest, most vile, most unforgivable thing you've ever done is laid out like that? Then finally he spoke, and all he said was, "You think I'm vanilla? You think I'm pathetic? Congratulations, now the whole world knows." And then he got up and he walked out just like that. No yelling, no screaming, no big dramatic fight. Just emptiness, and somehow that was so much worse than anything else he could have done, because at least if he screamed, if he threw things, if he called me a whore and demanded answers, I could have fought back. I could have begged, I could have made excuses, but he didn't even give me that chance. He just left. I sat down on the couch staring at the same spot he had been sitting in, completely numb. I tried to rationalize what had just happened. I tried to convince myself that maybe this wasn't as bad as it seemed, that maybe I could still fix it. He was just upset, he needed time. He would come home in the morning and we would talk. I would cry, tell him I was sorry, tell him I did not mean it, that it was all stupid drunken girl talk. I would tell him I loved him. I would tell him that no matter what I always came home to him, and maybe, just maybe, he would forgive me, but I was so wrong. Because by morning, Daniel was not just walking away from me. He was taking the whole world down with him. I woke up the next day to chaos. My phone was blowing up, missed calls, texts, notifications. Dozens of them. My stomach sank as I opened my messages and saw one name after another. Melissa, Jasmine, Carla, and then I saw their husbands, and I knew before I even opened a single text. Daniel had sent them the recording. He had ruined all of us. Melissa's husband had texted me once, and it was just 2 words. "You disgust me." Jasmine's husband had left 6 missed calls followed by a text saying he was going to ruin her life. Then just as I was about to call Melissa to find out just how bad things were, my phone rang. It was Carla. I picked up, and before I could even say anything, she was screaming at me. I barely understood half of it, but I caught the important part. She blamed me. She blamed me for getting them caught, for being so stupid, so reckless, for ruining all of their lives. She called me a home wrecker, a backstabbing bitch, a disgusting piece of trash who deserved everything that was coming for me, and then she hung up. I sat there in complete shock, phone still in my hand, ears ringing. I thought about calling Daniel, about begging him to stop, to not do this, to not burn everything down just to get back at me, but then I realized I had no right to ask for mercy, because this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every lie I had ever told, every single person I had betrayed, and Daniel was not going to be the quiet, pathetic, vanilla man anymore. He was going to destroy me, and I deserved every single second of it. I thought things couldn't get worse. I thought the worst part was Daniel leaving, that once the shock faded, I could somehow fix things, somehow find the right words to make it all go away, but I had no idea just how far the damage would spread. By the time I realized what was happening, it was too late. Melissa was the first to go down. Her husband lost his mind when he heard the recording. He didn't ask questions. He didn't yell. He just dragged her out of their house in the morning, still in her pajamas, and told her she was never coming back. I woke up to a text calling me every name under the sun, a traitor, a backstabbing bitch, a jealous bitch who wanted to take everyone down with her. I read her messages over and over, trying to convince myself that this was not my fault, that I never meant for her to get caught, that she was just as guilty as I was, but deep down I knew she was right. Jasmine was next. She didn't even try to explain to her husband. She didn't beg, didn't cry, didn't defend herself. She just walked into their bedroom, grabbed a suitcase, packed up her things, and left like she already knew there was no way out of this. I tried calling her. She didn't pick up the next day. She changed her number. She was just gone. Carla was different. She didn't run. She didn't hide. She blamed me, and she wanted revenge. It happened days after the recording came out. I was at the grocery store, stupidly thinking I could go out in public like my world hadn't just collapsed, when I felt someone grab me from behind and yank me around. Before I could even register what was happening, a hand connected with my face hard. The first hit shocked me more than it hurt. The second one, that one hurt. By the time I realized it was Carla, she was screaming at me, calling me every insult imaginable, telling me I was a filthy whore, that I ruined her marriage, that she should break every bone in my body for what I did, and she wasn't the only one. People were watching. Some of them just stared down, some of them laughed, some of them cheered her on. No one helped me, no one stopped her, because in their eyes I deserved it. I limped home, my face swollen, my body aching, my entire world falling apart around me, and when I thought things couldn't get any worse, my phone rang. It was my mother. For a split second, I thought she was calling to comfort me, to tell me that even if the whole world hated me, she would still love me. I was so wrong. She didn't yell, she didn't even sound angry. She just said that I wasn't her daughter anymore, that I disgusted her, that my father didn't want to speak to me, that my siblings had already blocked my number, that I had brought shame to our family, and then she told me to never call her again, and she hung up. just like that, like I was already dead to them. I don't even know how many times I tried calling Daniel after that. I must have left dozens of voicemails. I sent apologies, texts, desperate messages begging him to come home, to talk to me, to at least look at me, but he never responded. I even went to our house, our home, but the locks had been changed. He had shut me out completely. The only time I ever saw him was by accident. I was sitting in my car outside his workplace hoping to catch him when I saw him walking out the front doors, and for a second I thought maybe this was my chance. Maybe I could run up to him, grab his hands, make him look me in the eye and see how sorry I was. But then I saw his face, and it was like looking at a stranger. The man I married was gone. The light in his eyes, the warmth in his expression gone. All that was left was a broken man, a man who hated himself, a man who was ashamed to even exist because now the whole world knows the truth. They knew that his wife cheated on him because he wasn't good enough. They knew he was the pathetic husband who got laughed at behind his back. They knew that he had spent years in a marriage with a woman who never respected him, never wanted him, never saw him as a man, and instead of moving on, instead of finding someone else proving me wrong, getting his revenge. He did nothing. He didn't date, he didn't talk to anyone. He just stayed alone, humiliated, drowning in the knowledge that his wife had destroyed his life, and the worst part. I hate myself for what I've done, because for the first time in my life, I realize I never deserved it. It's been 3 weeks, and somehow things just keep getting worse. I thought that after the initial explosion, after the screaming, the fights, the betrayals, things would at least slow down, that people would eventually move on, that the rage would settle, that I could finally catch my breath. But I was so wrong, because if anything, the storm is only getting stronger. I ran into Melissa at a cafe a few days ago. I was stupid enough to think I could go out in public again, to sit down in a corner and sip my overpriced latte like I wasn't the most hated woman in my entire social circle. I was waiting for my order when I heard her voice behind me. At first, I thought I had imagined it, but then I felt something ice-cold splash across my face, soaking my hair, my clothes, dripping down my skin. I gasped. People around us turned to watch, and then I saw her standing there, empty cup in her hand, eyes filled with pure disgust. She didn't say much, she just called me a pathetic bitch, told me she hoped I rotted in hell, then walked away. I stood there, frozen coffee dripping down my chin, listening to the sound of people whispering around me. Nobody stopped her, nobody defended me, because in their eyes I deserved it. Jasmine didn't even bother seeing me in person. Instead, she sent me one single text message, and it was the most hateful thing I had ever read in my life. She didn't even curse, she didn't rant. She just wrote one line: "I hope you suffer for the rest of your miserable life." That was it. No threats, no screaming, just a death sentence wrapped in silence, and somehow that hurt more than anything else. And then there was Carla. She had already attacked me once, but apparently it wasn't enough. This time she waited for me outside my apartment complex, standing near the parking lot like she had been there for hours. By the time I saw her, it was too late. I barely got a word out before she rushed at me. I tried to run, but I tripped over my own feet, and the next thing I knew I was on the ground. My head hitting the pavement, the air getting knocked out of my lungs. She grabbed my hair, yanked my face up, spat at me, and told me I had ruined her entire life. I couldn't even fight back. I just let her do it. Let her slap me, let her scream, let her call me every disgusting name she could think of. I let it happen because I had nothing left in me to defend myself. Eventually, someone must have called security, because I heard voices. People shouting, someone pulling her away, but by then, it didn't even matter because I was already completely destroyed. I spent the next 2 days in bed, too ashamed to go outside, too humiliated to even step onto my own balcony. I checked my phone every hour, hoping, praying that Daniel had texted me, that maybe after all of this he would feel bad, that he would reach out, that he would ask if I was okay. But he didn't. There was nothing from him, not a single word. The only thing keeping me afloat right now is my business. I was terrified that the scandal would ruin it, that people would start leaving bad reviews, that orders would slow down, that my entire income would disappear overnight, but strangely, nothing has changed. People still buy from me, they still comment on my posts, they still share my products, they still treat me like a normal person. And for a moment it gives me hope, because it means that just maybe I haven't lost everything, but then loneliness creeps back in, because even if my business survives, I don't know if I will miss Daniel. I miss everything about it. I miss waking up to him in the morning, hearing him mumble something half asleep before pulling me closer. I miss his stupid laugh, the way he would run his hands through his hair when he was stressed, the way he would kiss my forehead for no reason at all. I miss the way he used to look at me before he knew the truth, before he saw me for who I really was, and I don't know what to do. I don't know how to fix this, I don't even know if I can, but I must try because if I don't, then what am I even left with? Nothing. But if I do try, I'm scared of the result. Daniel doesn't even see me anymore, he will move on and forget about me. Even hating me will be a thing of the past, he may not feel anything towards me again. It will just be empty his feelings for me, it will be what you feel towards a stranger. Honestly, I feel lost without Daniel. I thought the affair could make up for what Daniel was in my life, but apparently I cannot replace him with anyone or anything, and it doesn't help that no one wants me. I feel so lonely most of the time. Sadly, Daniel finally spoke to me after weeks of silence, of unanswered calls, of messages that sat unread, of doors I knocked on that never opened. He finally stood in front of me. I had spent so many nights rehearsing this moment, thinking about how I would break down in front of him, how I would pour my heart out, how I would tell him that he was my everything, and I would spend the rest of my life making this up to him. I had imagined him angry, hurt, yelling, demanding answers, demanding to know why I had done it, why I had betrayed him, why I had chosen to tear apart our marriage like it meant nothing, but that's not what happened. When he opened the door, he wasn't furious, he wasn't even sad, he was just done. There was nothing left in him for me. He looked right through me like I was already a ghost. All I imagined to be his feelings for me, if I tried too hard, if I pushed too hard, it had been true. He had nothing in him for me, and before I could even speak, before I could even beg, before I could tell him that I was sorry, I'm so sorry that I would do anything to fix this, that I would be better to love him. Being the wife he always deserved, he handed me the divorce papers. It was so cold, so final, like our entire life together meant nothing to him anymore, like I wasn't even worth the conversation. He didn't yell, he didn't cry, he didn't ask me why I did it. He just said, sign them. That was it, no explanation, no pleasantries, just to sign them, like I was a business deal he was closing. I felt my heart shatter. I told him I would do anything, that I would change, that I would go to therapy, that we could work through this together. I told him I still loved him, that I had never stopped loving him, that I didn't want anyone else, that no one else ever mattered, that no matter how many mistakes I made, he was the only man I ever wanted. To come home to, that I was willing to spend the rest of my life proving that to him, but he just stood there, and then he said the coldest words I had ever heard in my life. The only thing I want from you is to never see you again, and then he walked away again, and this time I knew he wasn't coming. Back, I sat there on the floor of his doorstep, holding the papers in my shaking hands. I stared at my name, his name, the legal jargon that felt like a death sentence. This was real, this was really happening. He was done with me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rip the papers apart, run after him, and force him to talk to me, but I couldn't because he didn't want me anymore. He refuses therapy, he refuses to try, he refuses everything. He has made up his mind, and no amount of begging, no amount of apologies, no amount of regret will change that, and honestly, I deserve this. I deserve every single second of his pain. I deserve to lose him. I deserve to be the woman whose name he never wants to hear again. I deserve to be the wife he tells people about with nothing but bitterness and regret in his voice, because I destroyed everything good we had, because I took a good man, a man who would have died for me. A man who trusted me, loved me, believed in me, and I broke him, and there is nothing I can do to fix it, but I can't let him go. I know I was a terrible wife. I know I hurt him in ways I can never take back, but I love him, and I can't imagine my life without. I don't know who I am without him, and I don't know if there's anything I can do, if there's any hope left at all, or if this is truly too late.